understand why you're 40 years old playing the game still. So.
Well, I mean, what game do you think you're going to be playing when you're 40? When do you think you're going to stop playing games? What's the age? What's the cutoff age?
When you're out of high school and college.
You're a high school kid?
Yeah, I'm out of high school. Yeah.
How old are you?
Why does it matter?
Well, I mean, you foresee yourself in the future quitting something you love, like video games? Do you not love video games? You just cruise through it.
I mean, I think it's a little bit of a waste of time when you're that old. But...
Well, how do you know? You're not old yet. I mean, I can think of probably reasons that video games would be a waste of time for a high school kid, too. Do you have a 4.0? Are you in honor classes to get more than a 4.0?
No, but...
You know what I'm saying? There's more things you could be doing to improve your life than playing video games, too, right?
Yeah, you study and not play games.
Hey, just recreation, man. Having fun. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Alright, then.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Arcade. This is the Week in Culture show. My name is Brian. I'm here with John, the problematic white guy.
Hola.
And we're going to be talking about some news and some winning. And hopefully things will remain stable while we do that. I don't know. I'm working on it. But anyway, yeah, there was an update to OBS Studio, which is the program I use to run my streams. And it was giving me a lot of problems. I think that the update kind of killed some plugins, or at least made some plugins not friendly with it.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like it's going pretty good now because I'm using Rumble Studio to host the stream. So we should be in a good place. Let me know if everything sounds good on you all's end. It sounds fine here. And I have music playing in the background that is the soundtrack to the game called The Great Rebellion, which I highly recommend you check out. If you haven't heard from it, look for it on Steam. I did an interview with the guys behind it, and you can check that out on my channel, Honey Badger Arcade. But anyway, we are here to talk about something that happened. The Game Awards happened, and I didn't watch it because I haven't watched an award show in a very long time. But I was reasonably curious about essentially what what were the nominations, who won, and that kind of thing. So I thought we could talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, I got it on the GCA. Did a simulcast of it, I guess, and so I knew they needed to get their watch hours up, and I wasn't about to watch that thing on my own. So but in the comfort of 30 some odd other people or something like that, it was a place where you could make jokes and razz this shit because. It was so full of, I know we've talked before about how these things are just stealth marketing, but there was nothing stealth about the Game Awards this past week. It was just nonstop, and everything is an Xbox, evidently. So
everything is an Xbox.
Everything is an Xbox. You're an Xbox. I'm an Xbox. The stream is an Xbox.
I wasn't made aware of that. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, no, now you are. We're all Xboxes. Yeah.
All right. So I didn't watch them. So what? I mean, I haven't watched an award show in a very long time. At least 6-7 years. Any award show of any type. No music awards. No Academy Awards. I'm just done with all of it. Yeah. So what did I miss? I mean, other than a Snoop Dogg performance, isn't he in his almost 60 years old now?
Gotta be. It was the 32nd year of Snoop Dogg officially, which seems like I could remember. I was listening back. I remember that album came out when I was in junior high, and so it was early 90s. So, or not early 90s, but mid 90s. But yeah, I don't know. He's got to be up there. It was. Yeah. It was exactly what you expect it to be. It was a whole bunch of talking heads backslapping themselves and utilizing Statler and Waldorf to try to undermine and lampshade all the commentaries that have been made over the course of the last 6 months to a year of, all this DEI bullshit that they were all too hyped for.
Wait, did DEI... Excuse me, did DEI come up on the show?
Oh yeah. They quite literally. Yeah, I mean, they quite literally had a couple awards that were. They had the Impact Award.
Oh no, I know about that.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's look at that really quick. I thought maybe someone went up to make a statement about it. But yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I mean, it was
so-
all stealth as they could, but yeah, I mean, it was just a nonstop cavalcade of insanity.
Yeah, so here I'm displaying. I looked at these the other day, briefly, and we do have categories you might expect from Game Awards, like Game of the Year, best music, best audio design, best indie game. But there's a lot, and they might break it down. Like I remember way back in the day, Game Awards were broken down by categories. So it'd be like best RPG, best fighting game,
Yeah.
things like that. But this year, and I don't know if this is a recent thing, maybe it isn't, but there are categories like, what was it that I saw here? I think best indie games tend to be a bit like leaning towards that, but best community support games for impact, innovation on accessibility, best performance, and I can give you a reason why I think that is. It's basically like the Oscars. The Oscars are not really an award show that is based in merit. It's an award show that's based in who is making like the best statements, who is in, who is basically saying the right things, promoting the right message. It's always been about that. That's why we have, we have this saying, Oscar bait, for movies that are obviously made to win awards and not necessarily, made to, they're not necessarily the best movie, right?
Right.
So they're doing the best performance. It harkens back to that. Best art direction can be a bit like that. Best game direction, best narrative. This is basically saying.
Yeah. No. I will say. I mean, it was pretty terrible. But if you really want to like see some extreme cringe, you should look at the Time magazine top 10. We did a segment on it on, was it Wednesday or Thursday on Will of the Fans? I think it was Thursday. And yeah, what do you think won Time magazine's Game of the Year?
What do I think won?
Yeah.
Dustborn? Veilguard?
Oh no, but Veilguard. I'm not even
Veilguard,
fucking
okay.
joking. I'm not even joking about it. I saw it listed at the top of the article before we got into it. Their the number 10 spot was Helldivers 2. Stellar Blade wasn't even included, and
Of course
it
not.
had
No Black Myth Wukong? Probably not.
Black Myth Wukong surprisingly was number 7, and I said, but that was only because like there was no way for them probably to avoid it without like making the whole thing look entirely too sus, because when it got to the number 4 position and we hadn't seen Veilguard yet, because like the article itself, it shows a picture of Drag Queen H right at the top, and I was like, oh my god, and I said it, I was like they're not going to do this, they can't do this. And when it got to the number 4 position, I was like, all right, so this has to be where they put Drag Queen H, because there's no way they're putting that thing in the top 3. And then the number 3 game wasn't it, and then I was like, no, they can't be doing this. I'm going to brace for impact now, but they really like, okay, they're going to do it for number 2 for like like the ESG points or whatever. And then number 2 is something else, and then I just kind of like I lost it on the stream. I was like, oh my, and yeah, sure enough, it was number 1. So as bad as this shit is, that is the quote unquote the Game Awards. It's nowhere near as out of touch as what Time magazine put forth. So I suppose there's that.
We don't need them anyway, but I thought we would look and see. It's sort of like leaving Plato's cave and then like peeking inside to see what's going on is how I see it. So I'm not really in a bad place, but we can certainly talk about like how we feel about the categories and what we think should be the winners. Like what are our picks? And I mean, we're going to get a chance to do that. Because I believe that there is like, what is it called? The Real Game Awards that Stuttering Craig, or the guys over at Side Scrollers are going to be doing.
Yeah,
I don't know how.
a $30 level subscriber membership, and you can vote on it. So
Hmm.
you know, it's even that in its best intentions is still something where it's kind of you have to pay to play kind of situation.
Right.
So
Right.
award shows, no matter who does them, are just kind of nepotistic, kind of whatever, you know. So
What do you think about them doing the real Game Awards and charging for it?
I'm not exactly a fan of it. I think it's a little bit like I suppose I can understand if you wanted to have it be like a slightly weighted kind of voting, but even that's kind of, you know, you're either doing it for the purpose of doing it or you're doing it for, you know, your own ends, and it's just kind of one of those things where it's like it's all just, to me, just it's all sprinkles on a turd. Like nobody needs to tell you what the game of the year is. You know, like you'll figure that out, whoever you are, whatever, you know, like your own game of the year is all that matters to you and your own experience. And I find all this, you know, just praise to be a little bit kind of unnecessary. It's just, it's one of the things we do to, you know, make us feel like we're somehow part of pop culture, which is like, you don't have to even do that. It is, you know, but yeah. I bet that I would imagine that my perspective on this is not shared by the consensus of people, but that's perfectly fine. That's part of the reason I'm problematic.
I got a comment from Dean Domino 25. Thank you, Dean. And he says they gave an award to a guy who they said supported game devs who were laid off. Pursha and Savvy found the dude was a Tencent exec heavily involved in DEI ESG, which they failed to mention. Who failed to mention it? You mean Pursha and Savvy, or
no,
Game Awards guys?
Yeah, that was the guy that I was telling you about, the Amir Savat. Yeah, he's all up in LinkedIn, and yeah, he's a Tencent headhunter, and he made a database of like 20 some crazy amount of jobs that they got broken down to 20 categories, so they can decide in 5 minutes whether you're qualified or not to pursue the job. So he made it a faster process to, like, you know, like throw people out on their ass if they're not, you know, willing to toe the line for, you know, the stuff.
Yeah, sure.
So that's deserving of praise, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, you know, we do have to navigate this climate, but I think that we're in. I frankly believe that there is a vibe shift happening. Some people are going to be early adopters, and some people are gonna take their time, like they're gonna resist in their own way. But I think that we should be looking at where things are at. And actually, the Game Awards did share something that I thought was pretty interesting. So let's look here. What I liked was the Player's Choice. So the winner for Player's Choice is Black Myth Wukong, which of course it did not make Game of the Year, and I guess they never wanted it to.
Right.
But it's interesting because there is this, and let me share this with you guys so you guys can see it. It's interesting because there is this, I don't know, like it's a funny environment, right? So yes, Tencent is funding, or the Chinese government, more accurately, is the one pushing DEI and ESG practices on Western developers while restricting it in their own houses, which gives them an upper hand in terms of, like, you know, making sales. And so people who support the Chinese developers, like the people who bought Black Myth Wukong, or the people who are playing, I don't know, any other number of Chinese games that are currently in development or already out, are kind of playing into that by doing that. And I talked about this on the show before, you know, basically cautioning people that, you know, it's very likely, I predicted this because we didn't learn it for sure until relatively recently, but I said it's very likely that if China is not doing it, then they're probably pushing it on our, you know, on our developers. But at the end of the day, shame on our developers for going along with it. Because that's, like, they could always have said no, but they didn't. And the reason why is because they also are true believers. So it's not like China is hoodwinking everybody.
No.
Like, they're basically just telling them what they want to hear, and they're just going out and doing what they believe. So we as as consumers or customers, more precisely, we should be like rejecting the AAA studios just based on that, the Western ones, right? And I still wrestle with the idea of, you know, is it a bad idea to buy like a Chinese game that's superior to sort of demonstrates like being like the let's say the example of like this is
like
what
a
we
protest
want.
vote.
Well, yeah, it's like sort of, but it's like because I mean, if you buy like really small indie games, which I'm totally fine with, the problem is that those games will never make the same impact that a bigger release would make. I would say AA is where I would, you know, sort of like cap it at, you know, because AA developers can make games that are as good or better than AAA games, and they wouldn't even cost as much to make. They don't need as many people to do it. The teams can be smaller or whatever. So that would be the way I would do it. So like, I kind of think people are going to buy whatever they're going to buy, right? So kids came out, a lot of gamers came out, they supported Black Myth Wukong. You can say that they, you know, basically have Chinese spyware or whatever, but they have made their vote with their dollars. And hopefully what the result of this will be is that people who are coming up, not BioWare, EA, not those big guys that are already out there, but the people coming up will look at that and say, oh, that's kind of, I think that's what these people want. Like we want, you know, games that are more about skill and that they're merit-based, they're masculine. That's what they want. And that's why Black Myth Wukong was voted Game of the Year. So I just wanted to point that out, that's what the fans chose. And what did the Game Awards choose? Well, let's look at the woke categories, because I think like there's Astrobot took most of the awards, and I can't say whether that is or not is justified or not. Probably. I mean, I guess it's like it was like a surprise hit, but
it's the only game on PlayStation 5.
Yeah, right. And that's another thing, right? The people who are behind the Game Awards are basically the gigantic AAA studios and console makers. Like it's Microsoft, it's Sony, it's Activision, it's EA. So like smaller studios are going to get like overlooked, or maybe they'll get a little bit of lip service. Like as I understand it, I think best multiplayer was Helldivers 2, and I mean, I think Helldivers 2 was like one of the best games of the year, and that is despite all the controversy around the shit that Sony did to these guys. I think Helldivers 2 deserves this award, but I also think it should be at least nominated for Game of the Year, which it was not. I don't think that Tekken 8 qualifies as a multiplayer game, even though it has like competitive mode, and I love Tekken, but I don't think that that's what should have been. But a lot of these were generally strange choices, not deserved. For example, Game of the Year went to Astrobot, which is probably fair, but then there's like stuff like Balatro, which is basically like a mobile game. And I feel like that there was some pressure to put a mobile game in there. And Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, as much as I love Elden Ring, this isn't a game. This is an expansion. This is DLC, so it shouldn't qualify. Somebody said in the chat. Yeah,
the guy behind Balatro, one of my college friends, he helped him kind of get started in the gaming industry. So like he was quite happy that he ended up getting as much recognition as possible, because he pretty much made the entire game while living in his mom's attic. So I mean, like at least you can kind of, you know, appreciate the fact that there is a game that was made by a game designer that kind of, you know, almost as independent as it gets, you know, at least getting some level of recognition. So
and there's he has a lot of cross promotion with it too. I'm not throwing shade at Balatro. I never played it, but so like it won indie game of the year, or indie debut game of the year, which I'm like, why is there an indie game, debut indie game and an independent game? Did they just create another category so that Balatro will win that one too? And they're doing cross promotion stuff with like Among Us,
Cyberpunk, and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. So
it's a very widely accepted, corporate level kind of independent game. So
Yeah.
take that as you will. It's just kind of like, for whatever reason, it has been given gilded status. And that doesn't, I couldn't speak to the quality of the game because I haven't played it, but I know that my friend Dan was really quite happy that it got as much as it did.
Yeah. So what do they get? Let's look at the woke categories, or at least see if I'm right about them. So first we got best adaptation. This is another stupid category. It was basically like best TV or film adaptation of a video game.
Yeah.
Like basically they're all bad except for like, I don't know, Sonic and the Mario movie. I think that's basically it. But let's go to most anticipated game. So we'll start with that, because that's a weird award to have in the first place. And look at these categories. All right. Now, some of them I think some of these could be strong contenders. So we have Death Stranding 2 on the beach. I know Death Stranding is very popular with you, John. You love the first one. And I know it's got like a lot of people who like it. I think that this is probably like a good, a fair category for this to be in. Ghosts of Yote, though, I don't think there's a lot of hype for this. Yeah, I don't think that people are interested. GTA 6, another one, like there is a shadow of concern over this game that is very, very justified. And I think
growing shadow.
A what?
I say a very growing shadow.
Yeah, it's a growing shadow.
With each week that passes, a little bit more comes out that, I've been kind of going on about for feels like 4 years now, telling people that to like anticipate for the worst, and everybody's like, oh, you're just caught up in your own little whatever about it. And it's like, well, I think that as a guy who played over 400 days, I have well over 400 days, probably closer to 500 days of GTA Online. I think that I am something of a qualified expert to talk about, the play experience. If a guy who's spent that much time in their game world is telling you that it's time to pull the cord, maybe you might want to pay attention.
Yeah, I think that it's going to make a lot of money because it's GTA.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know. Like, you know what? If GTA was a fail, that would be like the ultimate, essentially, evidence that people are rejecting this shit. We don't want this shit. And I think that most people are showing that. Like Dragon Age, the Veilguard, having very underwhelming sales compared to what they were projecting. I think they were projecting something like 6 million, and they've sold, or 10 million sales, and I think they sold like 2 million in sales, which is still a lot, but it's not what they were projecting. So they may not make their money back because
they're never getting their money back on that.
Yeah, because these gigantic studios with tens of thousands of employees, or like thousands of employees, I'm sorry, they have thousands of people on the team at these gigantic studios, and the marketing is probably like half the cost because they're taking a page out of the film industry, which I think is a mistake for gaming, because film industry is like, half of the budget that ultimately gets spent is on the marketing, and that's just to get people to go watch it. And so like, but if that doesn't shake out, then you end up with a Kraven the Hunter scale failure, or whatever.
Cray Vegan is
Cray Vegan is he? Yes. I have no idea. No idea.
Tell you. I'm never going to see it, but that was my joke going into it, was that he was going to be Cray Vegan the Hunter, and he was going to be like some PETA warrior or something like that.
Yeah. Well, he might be. I don't know. I have no interest in it. I think that the Sony Spider-Verse thing, I know it's dead now officially, but dude, the writing was on the wall like when Morbius failed. Like
the writing was on the wall when they mentioned it, before the first movie came out. It's just like Spider-Man without Spider-Man seems like not a good idea.
I guess the most successful of them were the Venom movies, but I never saw them, so I don't know.
Two diminishing degrees of success to the point where the third one is just kind of considered a waste of everyone's time and effort, other than people that got paid. Yeah.
What a shame. Well, anyway, so next we got Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, which again, I'm sure that Nintendo generally is reliable. So I don't think there's too much concern with that, whether or not that's going to be a success for people who own a Switch. And then Monster Hunter Wilds, which also has a very dedicated fan base. I would say it's a cult game, but I think it's bigger than that. So yeah, I mean, except for Ghosts of Yotei, I think that what this category really is essentially pre-marketing. Like, oh, everybody can't wait for this. That means you should also be excited. So it's all about like creating FOMO.
Yeah, the way that they structured their award show is they do like an award or two, and then they would do like, a hype reel for something coming up. And this was just a way for them to not have to have it being so obvious that they were doing more hype reels.
Yes.
So.
All right, let's look at games for impact. This is where you get into the woke shit. Like this is specifically what it's designed for.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I can say specifically that Games for Impact, that's something that was born out of the WEF, that is built around the concepts of climate change.
Yeah.
I mean, I did a whole report on it. If you go to Problematic White Guy on YouTube, you can go find it in one of my many long documentary breakdowns. So
yeah, definitely go check it out. There's a link in the description of this video, and shout out to Rumble Studio for handling this so well. Yeah, so Games for Impact, for a thought-provoking game with a pro-social meaning or message. Woo. And it's really so there's Closer the Distance. What? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Games for Impact is also one of the things that's heavily tied into a lot of the Canadian developers like SBI and the like. That's how they get a lot of their money. State-based dollar dues to go and make more just kind of state-based media bullshit.
Yep. So I'm gonna look up Closer the Distance and let's find out what this game is about. So Closer the Distance is a slice of life sim that tells a deeply emotional story about the connections between family and friends in the face of tragedy. Unearth long-kept secrets, repair strained relationships, and help your loved ones move on.
It sounds like an interactive Massengill commercial.
I'm dying inside. Like, look, these games can exist. Like, I don't care if somebody's into this, but this isn't like, what is that? Like, what is that? Oh man, this is
sounds like something that you'd see on the Lifetime channel, or like,
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So that's Closer the Distance. This is all like, young adult Tumblrina shit. Then we got Indica. Oh man, this one, I saw the trailer for this. I don't know if I want to, but we can watch it later if you guys want. But Indica is a 2024 third-person adventure game developed by Odd Meter and published by 11-Bit Studios. So, what is it about? Plot. Indica is a nun who hears the voice of the devil and sees visions. The other sisters at the convent do not like Indica and often have her perform menial duties. After a vision causes her to knock a priest over during the Eucharist, Indica is given the job of leaving the convent to deliver a letter to Father Herman in the Danilov Monastery. Along the way, she comes across a train accident. The conductor warns her that it was a prison train and that while most of the prisoners were shot, a few are still around. Arriving in town, Indica stumbles upon a prison guard attempting to force herself or himself on a woman, of course. She accidentally alerts the man to her presence, who goes for her next, but he's stopped by Ilya, the prisoner the guard is searching for. So
she's possessed by the devil?
No, she hears voices from the devil. She's a nun. This has all the markings of like ultra woke, anti-Christian content. Like, look,
that's what I'm saying. It's like the protagonist is like, because that's what I mean by she's possessed by the devil. Like, she's at least like under enough of like, the devil's kind of control to like, just like, or I guess torment to be, like, I don't know. Sounds like a very loosely affiliated nun. It's not very devout.
Yeah, they're literally flipping everything. So this is about inversion, right? So the prison guard is gonna rape a woman, but the prisoner is the hero that saves the woman.
Right.
So and they're so that's what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
That's the plot, David Joshua. Yes. So let me finish this other paragraph. That's Indica. This one looks woke as hell. Okay, pun intended. She accidentally alerts the man to her presence, who goes for her next, but he's stopped by Ilya, the prisoner the guard is searching for. Ilya then forces Indica at gunpoint to drive a motorized bike to help him escape the soldiers looking for him. She gives him some morphine, and the two keep moving. However, Indica crashes the bike. So it goes on more, but like, what is and there's basically, this is a another game for women. I don't know how. This
almost sounds like land acknowledgement bullshit, kind of.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So let's see that. Then we got Neva, which is the winner.
Yeah.
For Impact. So this has to be the most. It's got to be the most.
Never heard of it is all I ever keep getting from people on that. They're like, never heard of it. And it's like, yeah, exactly.
Most of these are going to be games you never heard of because they're all important, socially conscious games. Neva is a puzzle platform game developed by Nomad, a studio, and published by Devolver Digital. Oh, those guys.
Yeah.
It follows a young woman named Alba who must travel with her wolf companion, Neva, across 4 seasons in a world corrupted by darkness. The game was released for Windows, Mac OS, etc.
I heard it was described as basically Princess Mononoke, but not. And I was like, well, it looks kind of like a commie, but please no. And
Life is Strange Double Exposure. I think we know that Life is Strange as a franchise is woke as fuck.
It started off woke and got even woker.
Yeah,
with each
it was always woke shit for girls, the teenage girls. Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2. Again, we know about this one. Like Ninja Theory, they've been woke from the beginning, and I say this as somebody who owns 3 of their games, because I did like what they were doing in terms of like they were putting this focus on performances at the time. So I have Heavenly Sword, which was their first game. DMC, I know. Don't crucify me, guys, but I do. It's the Devil May Cry game that they made, which was a departure, and the third one was Enslaved Odyssey to the West, which I think is they're solid games in terms of gameplay. I think DNC or GMC is kind of unfairly maligned for the changes, but I get it. But you know what's funny is that back then, if you changed something in the canon and you got away from like what the spirit of something was and people got upset about it, nobody attacked the gamers for that. Like, I understood it. Like, I was one of them. I was like, no, I don't like what they did to Dante, but I'm gonna play the game because I want to play a game like this, and it was a solid game. But I'm glad when Capcom went back to the old Dante for Devil May Cry 5 and 4. Well, no, 5, because 4 was underwhelming, and I think that's why they changed the direction. But like back then, when you complained about that stuff, you weren't attacked for it. You weren't called a bigot because you wanted Dante to look like Dante, right? Or whatever the game was. There's plenty of other examples. Like even Metal Gear Solid 2, when people learned like right off the bat that you were, or like early on that you're basically playing Raiden for the rest of the game. Everybody was upset about that because they wanted to be Snake. And so like, granted, it pays off in the long run, but like when people complained, Hideo Kojima didn't say you're all bigots because you don't want to play the character or whatever. But it seems like now if you have a problem with like canonical changes, that's like their go-to, right? So I think it's a good thing to point out. And then lastly, we got Tales of... Yep. I didn't realize that.
Abubakar himself was on the stage at the Game Awards. He was one of the presenters.
So why was this game for Impact?
I'm assuming because it took Game for Impact money. That's, I think, the thing that is probably the unifier of all of these is they probably all got some bit of state-based grant money for doing games for Impact, and I think that was probably one of the prerequisites. Don't necessarily hold me to that on. I haven't researched, but knowing what I know about games for Impact, that does seem to kind of be par for the course. I think if they could have got away with getting Dustbin in there, they would have.
Absolutely. I think that Dustborn was too much of a failure. I think if it had done like in any way a little bit better, it probably would have been nominated for sure.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, I guess like that's. I mean, like at the end of the day, you know, this is ultimately a big corporate circle jerk where they just sort of like, you know, give kudos to whoever gave them the most, whoever had the most ad space, I guess, right?
Yeah.
That's probably how this is basically how the Oscars works. This is how the Grammys work. So it's the same thing. And I think that Jeff Keighley, the Dorito Pope, he's probably been to Epstein Island. He's probably been to Diddy parties, and he's probably got a lot of blackmail on him, just like all the other people. So the video game industry was always trying to be Hollywood.
Yeah,
or at least
I met
some
Jeff
people
Keighley
within
once
that industry.
for 5 minutes the same day that I met Hideo Kojima, and I gotta tell you, it was not very, you know, it was just kind of like, oh, hey, yeah. It was at that GDC I went to back in 2009, I believe, the one where yeah, and fucking what's his name? The guy went crazy. He was on XPlay. I lit a cigarette for him. What's his name? The dude who was with Morgan Webb. God, can't think of his name because I memory hold him.
I see.
Yeah. But what's it? Yeah, it doesn't matter. Someone on the chat will remind us.
Yeah. Yeah, remind us in the chat if you know. So okay, let's just like out of curiosity, okay. For you, I don't know if you've been playing anything new. But what would you say are some of your favorite games this year, whether they were mentioned on this list or not? Because I mean, I think that, you know, category weirdness aside, for some games, I could give you a couple of picks that I thought were excellent, that I enjoyed or I am still enjoying right now. So,
well, the only real games from this year that I played that were specifically from this calendar year would probably be Helldivers 2 is the only thing I paid for. So, and that started off strong and then kind of like got up its own ass about how it was going to engage with community and how they were nerfing all the cool stuff every 6 weeks, like what you thought was okay equipment all of a sudden became yes, Adam Sessler indeed.
Oh, Adam Sessler, yeah,
Adam Suckler. But yeah, cesspool. Yeah. When was Great Rebellion released? Because if that was in this calendar year,
it would have been this year. Yeah,
so
I think it was.
Yeah, that was the best game I played from this calendar year.
Yeah. I would say so. I mean, I want to talk a little bit about Helldivers 2 a little bit later because they have I think that there have been
they're trying a redemption arc.
They definitely are in the midst of a redemption arc. Not only that, but they just like added like another faction finally.
Yeah, the Illuminate.
The Illuminate are here, and I played a bit of it, and it's very cool. Like I'm thrilled, and there's a lot of hype and excitement. I think Helldivers 2 deserves it. I'm gonna tell you what. I think Helldivers 2 is game of the year. That's what I think. Yeah. Despite all of that, and I'll explain why. Because there are some great games that I got to play. I loved #Blood. I loved The Great Rebellion. I loved what's the other one? Space Marine 2. I think those are all great. But I think overall, for everything that it offers and for the price, Helldivers 2 is game of the year to me. And Shadow of the Erdtree, which was one of the things that was offered here, I think is a fantastic expansion.
Yeah, but it's not a game of the year.
It's not a game. No, it's not a game. Yeah. But anyway, so the thing about Helldivers 2 is that they pulled off something pretty amazing considering how small the team was. When they made the first Helldivers, it was a top-down, you know, kind of like fixed camera. Yeah, it was like that. It was a good directional shooter, you know, but it had all the same stuff. It had like the you know, the stratagems and everything, and the friendly fire was always turned off, and you had to like plan out everything. And I thought they really did a good job. And then they made some other games that I also really liked. Like they remade Gauntlet. The original, like Gauntlet, like, you know, warrior, wizard, elf, and whatever, Valkyrie, and it was also awesome. And I played the crap out of Gauntlet. And then when they made Helldivers 2, there was a pretty small team. It was only a few hundred guys, and you know, I guess like what they managed to do, and also the fact is that even though it's also a live service game, which is the thing that a lot of people are skeptical of, because basically every game is a live service game now. The way that they handled it, in my opinion, was about as good as it could be, because they're like working to make the content continually evolving. And there's so many things that we did when I played Helldivers. Like, for example, there was a planet you had to destroy, and it was like this big mission that took like several days. And then there was like a space station that you built, which was successful. And now we have like the Illuminate, and they've basically like landed on our colonized planets, and they're turning all the civilians into zombies. Meanwhile, the automatons are still approaching, and the bugs are still like doing stuff too. So you have like all this stuff to manage now, and everything that they bring out is effectively free if you play enough. So like I haven't bought anything in the game, and I've unlocked most of the like content that gets released. Yeah, most of the war bonds I've unlocked, except for like a few, and only because I haven't been playing it as much lately, because I've been really busy and I've been getting into other things. So I think that for me, Helldivers 2 is game of the year, but I would also put, like I said, hashtag Blood. I've been playing the shit out of that. I actually they gave out DLC, Space Marine 2. There was like a werewolf expansion that I just got for free. It was basically just like another like bit of content for the game. I will stream that at some point, but I'm just like getting through like this month. So like I think that like that's how you that's what you do. I don't think Helldivers have problems with community managers and all that, and I get it, but I think that overall the guys, you can just tell, I've seen some interviews, they just want to like make good games, and unfortunately they're operating in a kind of cesspool of an industry, and they have to navigate that space. So I think that is game of the year for me. But anyway, and I don't know if it was last year, but like for expansions, I would like, if I was to give expansion, I would definitely give it to Shadow of the Erdtree, although that was nominated here. But I also thought that Phantom Liberty, Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty was really good too. And
although I think that was technically right at the tail end of 2023, so maybe that why it was.
Yeah, that's probably not. Yeah, I think it was like last year. Yeah. So let's see what you guys are saying here. Dean Domino says, I think it came out in GG1 or earlier that Sessler did crack. Oh, really? That doesn't surprise me. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is the thing about these people. Like, they work in the industry and they become celebrities, and then that affects their mindset. Like the fact that they have like a best performance, that's essentially best voice actor. And now voice actors that used to work on video games are becoming celebrities in their own right, which of course they want, because this stuff like really it inflates your ego to an unreasonable degree. If you were just a voice actor that treated it like a job, like these old guys from back in the day, like Peter, is it named Peter Cullen, the guy who voices Optimus Prime from the cartoons, or some of the other guys, they're just normal guys. Like they have like they have like their little cult followings, but I don't think it goes to their head. But now that like anybody can become a celebrity, like these Matt Mercers and stuff, then they all become celebrities. And then on top of that, they become like spokespeople for the message, and they basically go out there, and that's why they become celebrated. They turn into celebrities, they enter the celebrity culture, they start promoting the message, and they start going to these like parties. And I think that's where the cocaine and the hookers comes in. That's what I'm guessing.
Well, I mean, I definitely saw cocaine and hookers when I was at GDC in 2009. So there you go. So I mean, that was quite the GDC that I went to that year. Let me tell you, like, I believe it. I could write a book, I suppose, but
maybe you should. Maybe you should. So anyway, what is your game of the year, guys? Like setting aside, whatever the guys over at the Game Awards and the Dorito Pope says. Let us know in the comments. I'd be curious to see what you're playing right now that you really enjoy. I know that somebody made a recommendation. When we do the cake later, I want to show you this, because this game sounds like it'd be hilarious to play on a stream. But we'll come back to that in a bit. Yeah. So All right, let's get into the next story. So, Naughty Dog is so there were a lot of announcements, right, for content at the Game Awards, and well, I don't know what the ratio was, but there was some good, some stuff I was hyped for, and there was a lot of trash. One of them is this new game from Naughty Dog called Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet.
Yeah.
And dude, Naughty Dog used to be a really great developer, like Crash Bandicoot, Jack and Daxter, the old Uncharted games. And when the old writer left and Neil Druckmann stepped in, it was just over. Like Uncharted 4 was a mixed bag, because there's like, I mean, I think it's overall a good game, but like the sections where there are sections of the game which are awful, and it's because of him, I'm guaranteeing you. And then we got The Last of Us Part 2.
As I like to call it, The Least of Us.
Yeah. If it doesn't have to be been released this year, then I suppose Deep Rock Galactic is my game of the year. Yeah, I hear that's a good one. Death to Zionism and Feminism says, I haven't purchased a new release in almost 7 years. Fair enough. Let's see. But yeah,
I mean, I suppose the one thing we can praise the game industry for is they're encouraging us all to go into those backlog of games that we never got around to, and giving them the time that they deserve, because
I have
a lot of the stuff is highly missable.
I've been streaming games every month. I try to do a different theme, and this month I'm doing I called it December and Dragons, and I'm playing like old sort of like fantasy, action games or RPGs, and they're not like the high investment RPGs, because I wouldn't have enough time to get into it, but like some of the more sort of action RPG types. And next month I think I'm gonna dedicate it to ninjas. I just haven't decided yet. Ninjas or big boob women. I'm not sure which. So
can it be both?
Yeah.
I mean, if it's the right game,
check it out. All right. Naughty Dog disables comments for Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet trailer as dislike ratio explodes.
Yeah.
Naughty Dog closed the Game Awards last night with a trailer for its new sci-fi adventure. Trailer released on YouTube at the same time, but Naughty Dog disabled comments to prevent the avalanche of hate that it clearly knew the game would create. However, that hasn't stopped the trailer's dislike ratio from absolutely exploding. I wouldn't call it hate.
I was calling this thing product placement, the game, while I was watching the commercial for it, because it was just nonstop with she's wearing like light up Adidas shoes, and like there's like Sony branding on everything.
God, it looks bad. I didn't even watch the trailer, to be honest. I didn't even watch it.
You didn't miss much.
I know. That's why I was like, it's the Naughty Dog. I already know I don't want to watch it.
It's exactly what you'd think it was. I watched it again when I was sourcing images with. I had sound off, but like I just kind of like ran it through my OBS, ripped it, and then proceeded to grab. Well, the image that you just scrolled past was basically like the one that I settled on, because like it had subtitles superimposed on top of it, and it was just it was just a whole bunch of girl boss bullshit.
Yeah, of course it is. So
it was two girl bosses.
Well, we're gonna talk a little bit about the actress who plays this character. So, Jordan, this is a post by Pirate Nation. Jordan A. Moon, lead character from Intergalactic, a new IP from Naughty Dog. And then it says, Yorch Torch Game says, Intergalactic features another uninspiring, uglified, androgynous protagonist from a Western AAA game studio. No one wants to play this. No one.
Yeah, the look on her face when she queefs.
Yeah, Grum says the Naughty Dog choice of protagonist is just so damn predictable. Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet newly announced. Yes, of course, and masculine, tattooed up, jawed up, bald-headed, and they're basically saying you have to go with this. Now let's hope and pray that this doesn't do well. But it doesn't look like it's going to, because it got ratioed into oblivion and people were clowning on it in the comments. So this is the thing. Like, people are saying like nothing's changed and it's not going to get better. But here's the thing you have to understand, guys. A lot of the woke shit that we're seeing trailers for are games that have already been development for at least 3 to 4 years, and they can't back out now. They have to release it. So
they're in too deep.
Yeah, because like, how long did it take for Dragon Age: The Veilguard to be developed? It took like 7 years, right? Or no?
Well, it depends on which
Concord.
version of development. Yeah, because like Dragon Age started off, it went through 3 different iterations before it became Veilguard. So it was four versions of the game. They made a trilogy of games that they didn't even use. So
exactly.
Yeah, that's the reason why that thing will never make its money back, is because if you look at like the development cost of it as Veilguard, maybe it might ever get close to like breaking even, but the collective loss of the entire 10-year development cycle that kept getting thrown away and restarted. It was initially supposed to be like I think it was supposed to be like an Anthem clone, but because Anthem was roundly just it was almost like the first Concord, but it actually sold and had some time on the market. They quickly pivoted away from that, tried to do other things, and then ultimately landed on, what if we just like did God of War, but woman, yeah.
No, nobody wants this. So the trailer at that point, we'll see if it's changed. Maybe I can look it up like at the end. Was sitting at 20,000 likes and 30,000 dislikes. So they got rid of comments, so people couldn't talk about it.
Yeah.
And this has
the
been
only,
like
the only aspect that might not be terrible is the music being done by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. I mean, I'm a huge Nine Inch Nails fan, have been since I was like 10. But I even this, I don't even know, they did the music to that movie Challenger with Squanch Face, Zendaya earlier this last year, and then they've got a soundtrack for a William Burroughs story that's being adapted into a movie called Queer, and I haven't checked into that, but it's just instrumental because it's the score track. So maybe that might be decent because those are 2 very technically sound artists, but it's one of those things where even me being like the level of fan that I am, I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna get that. May look for a pirate feed of it.
Yeah, I'm not even. I don't even have any interest in this at all. But, the woman who is, because this is the thing we're at now with these AAA games, is that like they're never just like game characters anymore. Now they're actors, and they're going to be on red carpet events, and they're going to be talking about their beliefs. And I'm going to show you the woman who plays this bald-headed Chinese character or whatever it is, androgynous person, is actually non-binary according to themselves. And of course, here they are on the red carpet looking like one of the ring wraiths from Lord of the Rings, telling us like what her beliefs are, because that's ultimately what this is for. So I'm going to go ahead and play this.
And then as far as with non-binary and transgender, I hope that we just start seeing that the future is here whether we like it or not. And it's not just accept it, but embrace it. Embracing something and seeing not only the beauty of it in it, but the way that it contributes to the world and contributes into the way that anybody of any gender, race, creed, color can form their identity and can walk through the world with pride and chin up high. Like, I think is so important for the generation behind us.
Yeah. Go stuff in your front hole. Right.
So let's just, I just want to point out that this ideology, this whole non-binary, gender non-conforming, transgenderism stuff is a very, very recent phenomenon. Like, so like, think about it.
Just to remind everybody, I am not a transphobe. I'm a transist. I'm not afraid of these people. I just find them to be outwardly and inwardly and just in every shape, form, reprehensible. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. She looks like black female Voldemort with blonde hair. Yeah. Ichu. Thank you, Serathis, for that. So, like, this is a think about it. Okay, when I started getting into Gamergate, even before that, there was already people on Tumblr talking about these ideas of cisness, which is it's like cisgender people. That's not a thing. They made that word up. Don't use it. But
slur.
It is intended to be a slur. It means you're normal and healthy. That's what it means. So, but they've been doing this, like, it started off in Tumblr and then it like exploded out into the world. And now you have people on the red carpet, people accepting awards, people doing interviews, celebrities with tremendous amounts of reach talking about this in this same language. This has been around for a long time, but a lot of people are just now discovering it, and it's become very mainstream now. So, Sarathis says echo. Yeah, I think that John, is your mic, sometimes you echo and sometimes you don't. I don't know if it's like your connection. You sound fine now, but
yeah, I don't know. I just got a fiber optic line installed this week, so that's. I mean, if my video hasn't been blanking out like it usually does, so I don't know.
Yeah, you haven't been dropping, but like sometimes your voice sounds like
maybe they said maybe they're meaning echo from like the Disney series.
Oh no, please! What did that? I forgot all about that already. I already forgot about that. So anyway, yeah. So here's the thing they're doing. Okay. They know that video games are popular with young people. They put messaging in the games. They get activists to work on them. And they're using it to corrupt the youth, to use a saying that I think some people might take issue with, but that's literally what's happening. And so like we have to be, we have to understand that that's really the goal, right? Like somebody in the chat said, honestly, I don't think they care if they lose money, but I'm definitely not going to purchase this trash. Yes, it isn't. It's really not. The message is more important than the money, because they have money. So this is just like what I was saying before, when people are always talking about, capitalism or whatever, but that want to criticize it, or they want to blame greed on corporations, and it's like, no, because if that's what they cared about, they wouldn't be voting to print money like crazy. So they obviously don't care about the money. They don't care about profits. They care about power. And one of the best, and power is not money. Like if you have enough power, you don't need money. Like that becomes irrelevant to you. It's like being, you know what I'm saying?
The only aspect money plays into it is the debasement of the currency, so that they can, make it harder for people to compete on a level playing field. That's about the only aspect of it.
I see. Yeah.
But in terms of like them seeking money from this, no, they're not worried about that.
No, they're not worried about that at all. So anyway, so that's basically it. That's the goal of this stuff, is to essentially just like they want to be able to condition people and subvert them and control them with these ideas. And a lot of people are vulnerable to this stuff, in particular young people, in particular women. That's just the truth of it. Like that's why they go after the women. And then what they hope for is that the men will follow, So that's why we have to end caping and simping forever. And then, men won't go along with it. And I think that's happening. I honestly do think that people in general, but men in particular, are rejecting this stuff. And you can see it in the downvotes and the ratios and the sales numbers. But these people have already invested their time in this, so they kind of have to release it. And they're just going to propagandize, and they're going to try to like tell people, no, this you have to like this, otherwise you're a bigot. Or maybe they'll say something like, well, it's a good game though. Like, David Jaffe, as an example, developer of God of War, he's still
noted misogynist David Jaffe.
Yeah, noted misogynist David Jaffe, still coping over what happened to his franchise. Cannot accept the fact that they said this is problematic and we're going to destroy it. And he's just like, okay, well, I guess it is. I guess I just didn't understand. And now your shit is gone, and now you're still trying to cope. Like he did a response I think it was reacting to like the combat in Assassin's Creed Origin, or what is the new one? Whatever.
Shadows
Fucking
is the one that's coming out.
Yeah, that's it. Assassin's Creed Shadows. And he was like, "Oh, the combat looks really good." Like, oh, no, man, it's not gonna sell, dude. It's dead. Stop. Just stop it. You know?
Did you see the proposed character model DLC stuff they had with the wrapped in a trans flag? Like, and my comment to it was, well, on one hand, it looks like they shredded a trans flag, which I'm all for. But then they went and just like, like wrapped it around this douchebag, which just kind of like, undoes any goodness that came from that. So. George Floyd.
Yeah, no, I didn't. Yeah, George Floyd and a trans flag, because like obviously if he was alive, he would totally be an ally. Right. You guys are so dumb, I swear. So fucking dumb. All right. Norwegian says, my impression is that more and more men are figuring out that simping will not get them what they want in life. That's true. Yes. 100%. Norwegian says, every time I hear cis, I think of the cis from Star Wars. You mean the Sith?
Mm-hmm.
It is. That's what we are to them. We are the Sith.
Yeah.
All right. But anyway, so speaking of game devs that are kind of like forced to double down because they've already invested too much time in this already. Apparently, The Witcher 4 is coming out, and do you have any experience with The Witcher, either the books or the show or the games?
I have the games on my GOG account, the first two, and I think I've got the third one on my PlayStation 5, but I've never played any of them. But this really tripped my trigger. When I think it was about a month and a half ago, and I was thinking of bringing it on here for one of the topics. They were doing they were going to have people kind of do playtesting in Boston, but you had to fill out an application, and they were only taking qualified people to be part of the event. And that's when I knew. I was like, oh shit, this is totally DEI game. Because they're gonna try to get an echo chamber of people to tell them how great the thing is, and if you don't fall into parameters of who they deem to be the acceptable modern audience to be part of the testing, then you're just not going to be allowed in through the front door. So they can try to curate all the reviews and everything like that would come out from it. They only want to hear from who they want to hear from, not actually get real feedback.
Death to Zionism and Feminism says The Witcher 3 is one of the greatest games ever made. Yeah, I mean they were on a roll. Like CD Projekt Red was on a roll, considering that it was a small company, but I think they've lost the plot. And I don't, I know that Witcher 4 is basically going to be like the death knell for this franchise because it has deviated so much from the books, and the show did this as well, because they just couldn't keep it loyal to the source material. And it's good that people are rejecting it. I think that the Witcher show is done. I don't know. I mean, for sure, because again, I haven't followed it very closely. The only CD Projekt Red game I own is Cyberpunk 2077, and I like it a lot. I even don't mind that it has a bunch of sort of progressive themes in it, because ultimately I think that is dystopian, so it fits.
Right.
So.
Right.
That I think it fits perfectly in that world. Like that's the world they want us to live in, and they think they don't understand why it's dystopian. Because they have like a distorted view on reality. But even Johnny Silverhand explains it well in the game, but they still don't get it. So anyway, sometimes these people, they show you how little they know, but they show you the truth on accident. And I think that's one of the ways. So anyway, The Witcher 4 executive producer explains why CD Projekt Red chose Ciri as the main protagonist and why she's going to be a Witcher, which according to the lore is impossible. Only men can be Witchers. But of course we're going to change that because it's 2024. Right. So the executive producer Malgorzata Mitsrega is explaining why the company made that decision. She said it was a very organic and logical choice. then echoing the narrative that surrounded The Mandalorian Season 3 with the season supplanting Din Djarin with Bo-Katan as the titular Mandalorian. Midrega said, quote, "It was always about her, starting from Saga. When you read it in the book, she's an amazing layered character. And of course, as a protagonist, we said goodbye to Geralt previously. So this is a continuation. I guess for all of us, it's like she was meant to be. That was always her."
Yeah, that's why she's not the main character, but okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the bride in Roar of the Horhiram. Being like a character that's a footnote, but for whatever reason, this is a story that Tolkien never got around to telling.
No, I have that as a story as well. The War of the Rohirrim, because it is the same. They have a person coming up and explaining it or like making a defense of it anyway. So, okay. So game director Sebastian Kalemba then declared that Ciri is seemingly becoming the titular Witcher of the entire franchise. He said she's actually about to become the Witcher. She's about to actually form her own codex, but on her own terms. The way she actually deals with the monsters, the way she deals with quests, the adventures, it's her own unique way. And I also think that she gives more room to be able to tell different stories here and there, Kalemba continued. Of course, we want to be able to give the opportunity for the player to explore more nuance because this is what we do, but she deserves that.
Sure. Did you see the trailer for this by chance?
No, I have not.
All right, it ends exactly how you'd think. She slays a monster. She goes back to the town, and then, what do you think she says? That's not the real monster to a group full of dudes.
Oh no! Really?
Oh yes! Oh yes!
No.
Oh yes!
Oh
no,
god! Okay,
no
we gotta look at it. We gotta look at it. But let's go. So, in related news to this, because it's basically the same thing happening. War of the Rohirrim, the anime that you thought would be like a good Lord of the Rings thing, turned out to not be. It's a girl boss, Mary Sue, woke garbage fest. And of course, the producer, Philippa Boyens, attempts to defend destroying Tolkien's lore, saying, "You can't destroy it," she says. In an interview with IGN, Boyens stated, "Professor Tolkien stated in his letters that the most compelling story is the untold story." She also added, "We can't do anything to those books. Those books are going to stand as these masterpieces, hopefully till the end of time. We can't ruin them. So people who came at you saying, oh, you ruined this or you ruined that, no. All we did was we presented you with an adaptation of his work, and some people will come to it and relate to it, and some people won't. And sometimes the criticism is justified, and sometimes it doesn't." Nevertheless, she also explained why she decided to completely issue the books. Well, what I think you will see unfold, hopefully, because this is where we work from, is that don't just change something arbitrarily. If we're going to change something, do it for good storytelling reasons. And anything you bring to it, make it feel real, make it feel authentic. She later added, make sure you know what that reason is, and it's a really good storytelling reason why you are having to make that change. If you're adding, make it as authentic as you can possibly make it. So we didn't just draw upon Éowyn for Hera, we drew upon women from early English history that Tolkien himself would have been familiar with. So there's nothing woke about this, guys, if you're out there. She's talking to the men that might watch this, right? Nevertheless, she also admitted it's an interesting piece of storytelling, even if you just follow the bare threads that are in the book. And that's because it starts out huge and quite epic.
That's what that statement sounds like. Well, actually, it's not that woke, guys. Jesus.
Yeah, so
fuck you.
Here's the thing I wanted to say about this. So, like, we are talking about Tolkien's work. So there are people who write scripts for shows and movies and like sketches, and then there are people like Tolkien that write novels, that write books, that write literature, not like the, this crap that we call literature today, like these young adult novels and these salacious like 50 Shades of Grey and Twilight type stuff. That's not literature. That's not going to stand the test of time. What has are works by people like C.S. Lewis and Tolkien and Charles Dickens and Mark Twain. And those are, and Roald Dahl, right? And those are the stories that these people want. They want so desperately to be a part of. And what it shows is the arrogance, the absolute arrogance of so-called creative people today, that they think I'm gonna take this thing that Tolkien made and I'm gonna add to it because I'm just as good, I'm just as qualified as he is. And so they do that, and of course they don't know how to write. They fuck it up. They add in their own bullshit. They obviously do self-inserts. And they can't do the job. And then when people call them out and say this isn't right, and all they have to do is take what's already been written, but these people's egos, their narcissism is so like through the roof that they can't do that because it means that they're not putting their own input. Their voice isn't in there. And that's why they feel like they have to change everything. They have to make it theirs. And they think that because they've attached themselves like some kind of fucking ringworm to like the work of somebody else that actually like knows what they're doing and actually took care to put that in, but they fail is like it's just like a doomed outcome. Like they had no chance. But of course they can't accept that because this comes from this idea that we're all equal, we're all the same, we all have the same chances, we all have the same qualities. There is no such thing as merit. When it's obvious that Tolkien is a writer on another level, like many others, of that equivalence, right? That's why they want to tear down C.S. Lewis. What is it? Greta Gerwig is going to be doing her version of the Chronicles of Narnia, and she's clearly going to butcher it because she's a feminist, and that's what they do. And they want it to be about themselves because that's ultimately what that is. When somebody says I'm a feminist, they're like, I'm a narcissist. I'm an evil person ultimately. So yeah, they're gonna destroy C.S. Lewis. They hate him because he's Christian. They hate him because he told Christian stories. They hate Tolkien because he was Christian and he told Christian stories, right? And that's what they have to do that. And the War of the Rohirrim was just another, it was another piece of shit product, and they disguised it as anime. That's another thing you have to understand too. If you're anime fans, like that shit's not safe. They think they know how to get you, and that's one of the ways they do it. Tolkien wrote the holy books of fictional masterpieces. Yes. As Razorfist noted, you write more compelling stories having lived through World War I rather than attending your junior college. Exactly. Yeah. And so like they have to defend it because they know that they suck. So this is the only option they have. Anyway, so I just want to put these two stories together. To ultimately they're the same story, really. Yeah. It's just like an activist pretending to be a writer defending their work.
Pretty much. I mean, it's not even like it's not the first time. Certainly far from the last time. Unfortunately, this is just kind of par for state of play in these day and age.
Yep. But anyway, yeah, don't defend this stuff. Yeah, just like let them writhe and seethe, and they're gonna cope. They're gonna like try to blame you. They're gonna try and blame the fans. They're gonna call them toxic, and that's where they try to get you, the potential customer, to cape for them, and you shouldn't cape for them because they don't deserve it. So anyway, let it die. It's over for that one. Let me look at your comments really quick in case anyone wanted to say anything. Oh, Death Designivism and Feminism said, Dragon Age Inquisition had a trans man, and that game was released in 2014. There was a foreshadowing at least a decade ago. There's always red flags. Yeah, see, like I only played Dragon Age Origins, and I didn't care for it. It was pretty like, I don't know, it was mid to me. So maybe I'm special, but didn't care for it.
Yeah, never interested in me. I think I may have one or two of them either through like the Epic store or something where it was like a free download or a free like pick up. I've yet to actually. Yeah, I've got like 100 games from the Epic Game Store that I've never really played. Yeah, so yeah. which they're doing their 12 days of Christmas thing starting on the 19th. They'll have a new game every day of the week for like 12 days or so. So you can get Lord of the Rings, Return to Moria, I think is what it's called right now, for free. So if you're interested in that, you get to be a dwarf. You do dwarf things.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. So let's look at the next story. This is just something that I thought I would echo because I think it's true. So this is from Fandom Pulse. Shout out to Fandom Pulse, Smash JT, and That Park Place, by the way. So Fandom Pulse put out this opinion piece called "The Hero's Journey Was Never Meant for Women. The Problem with Star Wars, Rings of Power, Marvel, and More." And I think this is true. The hero's journey is for men only. It is a male only space. It is not co-ed. The hero's journey is slaying the dragon, not stealing the gold and getting the virgin. And women have they have an equivalent. They do. But it is based on the Virgin Mary. I think there are some examples of this, essentially a matriarch type of story. And that would be let's give an example. So first of all, hero's journey is for men. We're the only ones that go on it. That's why whenever they try to just replace the man with a woman, it doesn't work. It doesn't usually work out. There are some exceptions, but it's about how it's executed. For example, The Wizard of Oz is a good example. See, Dorothy is not like, Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker is the quintessential hero's journey story, or Frodo or Bilbo even. They're all really good examples of the hero's journey, where you go out on a quest and you slay whatever the challenge is, and you return home and you're different. It's like a transition from boyhood to manhood is essentially what it ultimately is. In the way that the arc is told.
Another good one.
Huh?
I said RoboCop's another good one. He transcends death, only to find himself, being, Murphy.
Have you ever seen Peter Weller, the guy who played RoboCop? He's like a professor, and he has like he has like a really great presentation or speech where he talks about RoboCop and how it's essentially it is Frankenstein.
Yeah, I think I know of it, but I haven't seen it. But I'll
it's great.
Look for it, though.
It's great. Yeah, he's very passionate about that.
Yeah.
And I love RoboCop. It's another one of those, Paul Verhoeven movies where he intended to say one thing, but he ended up saying something else. Like with Starship Troopers. So, but anyway, so the female version of the hero's journey can manifest in two ways. So because there are three stages in the life of a woman. There's the maiden, is it the maiden, the matriarch, and the crone? Okay, something like that. Yeah. The maiden, the mother, and the matriarch. That's what it is. The maiden, the mother, and the matriarch. And Dorothy is the maiden in the story of Wizard of Oz. The way that her story unfolds that makes it different from the typical hero's journey, because she does obviously go to another, a foreign world, and she meets strange people and confronts, dangers, and then she, finds her way back. But the difference is the way that it happens, the way that she executes action. And it is ultimately she befriends people. So she creates a social network with the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Lion. And she goes and, accidentally kills the witch, essentially. But so it's not really a confrontation per se. And then she, goes to the wizard and reveals the truth. And of course, her companions, they help her along the way in their own unique ways, right? The Scarecrow comes up with ideas. The Tin Man, becomes confrontational or becomes compassionate rather, and the Lion is confrontational. And they basically realize that she cured them in her travels with them of their shortcomings. And this is what I think women do. Like this is what women's strengths are. That's why cheerleaders are so effective in games, because the cheerleaders, they support the team, and the team is basically they get buffs. I don't know how else to put it. Right? They get buffs from it, right? if they are operating in that way. So that's one example. Another example of the female hero's journey working the same way, I just had it, was shit. What is it? Well, you could say the same thing with Alice in Wonderland. There's like a similar thing. And then you have like the mother stuff, which is like Sarah Connor and Ellen Ripley. So Sarah Connor is protecting her son. He may not be born yet, but that's the primary motivator for her. And of course, she learns from a relationship with Kyle Reese in the first Terminator film. Ellen Ripley, again, she finds I think it's like a cat in the first movie, but in Aliens, where she like has a relationship with Newt, which is that little girl, that's a big, and she is a mother. Like at that point, she had a daughter, and her daughter died. Well, like she outlived her daughter or was very old. I can't remember
cryostasis.
Exactly.
No, her daughter's dead because she spends all that time in cryostasis.
Yeah, exactly. But like that, and that motherly instinct is expressed in the story. So there is a, that there is that angle in it. But the problem is that the people who write stories today, they are just taking the men out and replacing them with women, and it doesn't work. Nobody gets it. And actually, the woke stories are not even about women's growth. It's not about that at all. Whereas the men, like Luke Skywalker is kind of a whiny bitch that mostly tags along and isn't super useful until like the very end. If you watch the first movie, he's just kind of like experiencing everything. And he had to learn, and I think he becomes like slightly better in the second one, but still pretty useless. Like Darth Vader defeats him and traumatizes him with his news, but he did go and meet Yoda and all that. And then in the third film, he's basically like grown and he's like prepared and he's like a badass, right? In Return of the Jedi. And so like, that's the way the story should go for men. With the way that they're writing women though, it's very different. Like, well, it's like it doesn't work, right? Like what their ultimate thing is that these women were always awesome. You just didn't let them be awesome. That was basically the storyline for Captain Marvel, right? She was always awesome. She always had the power. She just needed to realize it. And men were just keeping her down. That's like all of that. Rings of Power. Rey was just excellent at everything, and we just had to realize it. And so that doesn't work for a story. I guess there was also Bo Peep in like Toy Story 4 or something, but because that's shown here, but I don't know what that is. And we lost John. So I've been talking to myself for all this time. Well, anyway, that is the issue with that. I don't know if he's going to come back. Hopefully he will. But we're going to move on to the next story. I want to 1225. I don't know if John's going to come back, but I want to touch on this Goonergate controversy really quick. Let me send him a message and see if he's going to be back here. Hold on a second, guys. Sorry. Hold on a second. All right. So yeah, John dropped. I sent him a message and told him he can come in whenever. I would accept a hero's journey with a woman if she's chasing justice for someone that's wronged a male in her life. Yeah, but they'll never do that. And we're talking about abstractions here. I mean, you can make the specific details of something different, but that doesn't make it the hero's journey. You know what I mean? Okay, so a new challenger appears. Religion. Goonergate explained. So, this has been a thing that came up, and I kind of suspected something like this would happen. So, Gamergate 2, Gamergate 1 had something similar like this too, but Gamergate 2 has been a pretty interesting ride because there's obviously like different people with different goals or ideas on what victory would look like for them. for Gamergate, right? One of them is to end censorship, or at least like end the censorship of, you know, like the female form in gaming. Another one might be something like return masculinity to gaming, which is not exactly the same, but it might be like related in a way. So like bringing the masculine back. Another one might be to get rid of all the troon stuff, you know, and all of the woke, like modern day politics out of gaming. Another one might be to basically, there might still be some ethics cucks out there that are just like, I just want them to be fair and ethical. And then you got people who think that Gamergate 2, just like the culture war in general, has to be a conservative movement. And I think that what this exposes is something that I think has been true for a long time, which is that there is no such thing as, there is no right wing. There is no like conservative, let's say, faction, okay? There just isn't. It's basically the left and everybody else. And so the everybody else gets lumped in with the right because the left created the paradigm. They basically constructed the paradigm. They're saying, we are this side. And of course, the side that we're on is all the good stuff, all of the good things. And anybody who is not on our side, they're on the other side. And that means they're the opposite of the good things, right? So, this is showing that, and that's not going to go away because until we realize that we aren't all on the same page, that we don't necessarily want the same things. But I think that it's not a good idea to get caught up in the potential infighting that might emerge from that. Okay, so what Goonergate is essentially there are some people that are fighting on the side of Gamergate that want to preserve their sexual characters, their sexy women characters. And this is a screenshot from what is that game called? The First Descendant, which has a lot of sexy characters in it. And despite the fact that, you know, there's probably like a lot of grinding they have to do and all that, but people like the game for a number of reasons, but this is definitely one of them, just like Stellar Blade, right? And so like you got like some people who are very, you know, like concerned that this is going to that this is just going to become like degenerate in another way, and they see like a parallel degeneracy that they're trying to point out. And I mean, I get it, but I think personally, you shouldn't be too prudish, because that's what you're going to drive people away. So from speaking from a tactical perspective, you're going to drive people away, and you don't want to do that. You need as much support as you can on this. And it's okay that people have like, you know, that they want their sexy women. The other thing is that you have to like figure out like, okay, well, if there is like, if you do think that it's getting degenerate or whatever, and you don't want to support it for that, where's the line? Like, where do you draw the line? Because at the very least, these are female characters that look like females, right? So ultimately, what I think it comes down to is that the people who are like basically worried about this Goonergate thing, they are in a way they are just as bad about essentially men's, let's say, sexual interests as the left is. The left and these people, they see men as the ultimate, like, you know, danger, like their sexual preferences or their sexuality is something that they feel like needs to be controlled in some way. And I am of the opinion, as a Christian myself, that people have to have the ability to choose like what they want. And I think that it's better that we have everything out there than nothing. We already have like games ratings, you know, whether it's for adults or teens or whatever. We already have those systems in place. We can just go with that. I'm not interested in telling people what they can and can't like. I'm not going to shame anybody for being in the Stellar Blade, or even like focusing on, you know, like I don't know, like Overwatch porn or whatever it is that you're into. I mean, it exists. Like, it's not going away. So like what I think is better is that we allow for everything. We don't get caught up in what, you know, because there's a guy named Kyle, I think his name is, and he was like a very big vocal, let's say a very big voice in this whole thing when Gamergate 2 started, and his whole thing was on the sexualization being like toned down, and the women getting more masculinized and made more androgynous, and like shrinking the boobs and like, you know, killing their curves and all these other things. And I mean, I think he was right. Women should look like women. That's basically a start right there, right? And so Smash JT got into it with John Trent, who runs he's one of the writers for Fandom Pulse, along with John Delarose. And I like those guys, but I think that they're getting a little too, you know, they're wagging their fingers too much at this, because we should win the culture war first. And then we should figure out like what is good for who, right? You don't have to support like you don't have to support games like The First Descendant or Stellar Blade if you personally think that it's too much. But the problem is that when you're saying other people shouldn't be doing it, you know? So Smash says, when you're becoming exactly what you are fighting against, you are no better than those you are trying to stop. And John Trent says, woke ideology and Christian morals are not the same thing. The Tilted Cajun says, wrong. Both want to push their own ideologies on people who may not necessarily be interested in them. And then he says, weird you wrote wrong and then agreed they are different by noting their own ideologies, albeit Christianity is not an ideology. And then the Tilted Cajun says, an ideology is a system of ideas and ideals, which is what all religions are. You think because one is the word of God, that makes it different, makes it special. And of course, now we're getting into this tar pit, but I think it's a necessary. I mean, we're gonna run into this at some point anyway. But here's the truth, okay?
I apologize.
Oh, you're back.
Yeah. So I've got like 137 cats in this house, and they unplugged the internet.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's nice. Well, let me plug you back in because people can't hear you right now. I gotta put your thing back in here.
No worries. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah, the internet works great as long as it's plugged in.
Oh, well, when did you realize that it wasn't plugged in?
I almost like it dropped, and then I made sure the feed was still going, and I could still like access the chat for a second. And so I was like, all right, so this is probably, and I was like, we just got the new thing in, probably. So after the show today, I'll be duct taping, an electrical cord to the wall to make sure that the cats don't just go and pull it out again. So my apologies, everyone. I'm back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we're talking about like what I think is an important subject, maybe the main subject is Goonergate.
Oh, yes.
And I was just explaining, I just read this conversation, which I have on the screen so you can catch up. And I was just talking about the fact that, we're okay. I think the pushback against the people like John Trent, despite, like I said, I like Fandom Pulse. I think they could do good work. But the problem is that guys like that, they're in too much of a hurry to make this into like a more theocratically aligned set of morals. And that's just not like, we don't live in that world. We don't. Okay. Here's the thing. I am a Christian. I've been going to an Orthodox church for a year now, but I have no interest in pushing this on anybody else before they're ready. If they're even ever going to be ready, which I am fine with. Like, I don't want people to like have to adopt something. I think one of the most annoying things is, and I'm not accusing any of these people of that, but I have run into this myself. One of the most annoying things are recent converts that suddenly become theologians, and they're like, I'm going to convert everybody. That is super annoying. I don't like it. So,
and it kind of goes against, Christ's method. Like it's very satanic to be like, oh, I'm going to make sure everybody does the thing, and it's like, that's not how that works. That's the whole point of the gift of free agency. Yeah. I am affectionately calling them the woke right because it's just as crazy, but in the completely opposite direction. But it still ultimately ends up being like this draconian kind of top-down control scheme that doesn't do anybody any favors. You know, you have to give people the ability to just live and breathe.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, okay? The reason why we have the woke left is because, in part, our society became more and more secular and atheistic over time. And things like, you know, the feminist movement, the sexual revolution, over time, and all these other things slowly began to become normalized, just like Yuri Bezmenov said. And it starts when you move away from, you know, like a higher power. I'm not saying it has to be God, but a higher power, because under that you build a moral framework and you operate within that moral framework. And the only way you can have that is if you have an understanding of what right and wrong is. But now we're living in a postmodern time where everything depends on your perspective. And so like there is no right and wrong. And that's how it's coming out in our stories, where everything is subjective, everything is postmodern, right? Mm-hmm. And so we are in a fallen state, you could say, as a society, like across the board. And what's happening now is people are just starting to realize that we need some kind of moral framework, some kind of hierarchy of the good to operate under. But that doesn't have to come from Christianity. I mean, I think it will be better because I don't want Islam or whatever. But right. I mean, it has to come from somewhere, okay?
Yeah.
And so what the woke have done is they have secularized everything. They've made people atheistic. They've made people self-indulgent. They've made pleasure the ultimate good, and like, you know, and also tolerance. And then they've used that to push in their own religion, which is the woke religion, which is a religion, okay? It's a cult is what it is. But so now we're fighting back against it. But the mistake that people like John Trent are making here is that they are treating everyone as though we're all starting from the same place. And we're not. And that's why I say we're all kind of fallen. Like that is the base assumption, is that everyone is fallen, even in Christianity, right? Including myself. So like, this doesn't work. You can't make people be moral. They have to choose it. And you have to also be able to look inside yourself. You know, there is like the saying, you have to carry your own cross, pick up your own cross, right? You have to understand your own understanding of what you're doing. And just like you said, John, like people can't be made into this. They have to choose it. And so I think this is just like, they want to argue with it because there's something about this they don't like, but what they don't understand is that people are not all starting from the same place. So, you know, I was talking about Kyle, who got involved with this because he hated what they were doing to some of his favorite franchises, where they were, you know, all the women were becoming like androgynous and masculinized, and the men were becoming feminized. Right. And, you know, he talked at great length about what was wrong with Concord and what was wrong with, I think it was like Perfect Dark, and where they jawed the woman up in that, and Star Wars Outlaws. But when Stellar Blade and the first Descendant came out, that was like a relief from that. Or that other game, Vae Victis, right? And he was showing lots of footage from that, and it has women. You know, they're obviously fan servicey. They're very attractive women, sexual women, and he would use that in his content. And I think that's the thing is that whenever these non-woke companies put out new, you know, characters or skins or outfits, like they just did for Stellar Blade, they did a thing with Nier Automata, where you can give like Eve like the 2B outfit, and obviously like the Stellar Blade game feels like it's ripped off from Nier Automata in some thematic ways. So it was an obvious crossover thing, and people were sharing it online, and these guys are getting all bent out of shape because they're like, that's not what we should be. But it's like, it's not up to you. What you should be doing is fighting against the communists that have created this environment. And let people alone on that, because eventually the thing is too is that I think that then I'll get your thoughts on this, but what I think is going to happen is these like fan servicey games that are getting a lot of attention right now because they do have women in them that look like women. That's going to pass. Like after a while, people are just going to be like, they're not going to accept like mid games, like in terms of their actual like gameplay. They're not going to accept mediocre games just because of TNA. They're going to become more discerning over time. They're going to say, I want, because like what, like Warhammer Space Marine 2 is a non-woke game. And there's only a couple of women in the game at all. And they're meaningless. They're not a part of the story in a significant way. So that's not really the issue, right? So I think that it's because they're starved for this stuff. Why did Tomb Raider Remastered do well? Is it because of the TNA? Nah, I think it was because they wanted to go back to the Lara Croft of old, where it was fun. So I don't think that this is going to be like a sustainable thing if people have issue with it. But anyway, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I talked about this a couple times this week on various channels, but I think that Ryan Roger Thay made a very valid point that the people that kind of brought this into purview and kind of like made it a little dust up are people that kind of had it was a ever mounting kind of issue, and they were kind of disenfranchised from the wider aspects of this culture war that we've been going through over the course of the last year. One of them specifically, the person who initially got into it with JT, Dread Roberts, he's on the FFS Discord, and when he decided that he was purging people that he was following earlier in the week, I was one of the people that he purged from it, and I was just like, all right, well, that's interesting, because it's like I mean, I'm still in support of him. I have no problem with him having a different perspective or point of view, and like what he ultimately chooses for himself is a subjective thing, and that's the way that it should be for anybody. Because the odd thing that you see happening here is these people want to sit here and decry about like your sin, your sin, your sin. It's like, well, you're being judgmental, and that's pride. So maybe just step back and shut the fuck up for a minute and let other people live their lives and leave the judgment, as it were, especially if you're so faith-based, to the person who actually does the judgment, which is God. And last I checked, that's none of us. We're just meant to be here, getting through our own situation and learning in our own way, so we can ultimately, be, on the pathway to ultimate judgment and forgiveness if we so choose. Because, even in the Bible, like the two guys that were up there on the crucifixion, on the cruciforms with Christ, it was a murderer and a thief, and they're the first two people that are allowed into heaven. So it's kind of like slow your roll and sitting here saying that you must be this pious and this good or whatever. That's not even what any of this stuff is about. This is about personal growth and development as individuals. And, for people that go to church on Sunday every week, I have no problem with that. But, I myself don't really ascribe to any specific religion, because I find them all to be just a whole bunch of silly hats that kind of get in the way of the head of good faith that, comes from your heart, mind, body, and soul, and gives you that direct connection, whether you, actually take upon that in your own experience or not. That's, again, an individual matter. And these people, like with Dread specifically, you kind of see like his dearth of content that happened over the course of the last, few months. It just kind of like he used to be putting out stuff consistently, like on an almost daily basis. And then all of a sudden it just kind of became like a few weeks in between each thing. And then I think it's been like well over a month since he last put out anything. So I think that this is always something that was just kind of like this underlying issue that just kind of got, like the straw that broke the camel's back. A thing happened and it tripped this trigger that was already set to go once the moment arose. And the only saving grace is that since all this stuff has happened, now Mercante's done her lawsuit against JT, and it's completely kind of reformed the ranks, so to speak. And hopefully these people that are kind of caught up in their own sin of judgment and pride will hopefully kind of like, after a few days time, kind of realize that maybe, just maybe, I might have pressed the gas a little too harshly on this one and like, rev this thing up out of my control and straight off the fucking road into the skids. And, it might behoove me to like, either get out of my own way or, just kind of like, like ratchet back and make some apologies and hope that people are, just as forgiving as I'm supposed to be, because that's the other big aspect to all this stuff that kind of gets lost is that, it's like, you can't sit here and like, tell people that there's no way forward because they're not good enough. Like that's kind of goes against the whole concept of what, acting in accordance to good faith is even about. So it's, these are of course just my opinions. And I don't think that I'm like any kind of, moral kind of, leader or anything like that. Like I've definitely got my own weird walk of faith that I've gone through. Like, I worked in a house of ill repute for a number of years, like I was Seattle's premier late night boogeyman and sex mechanic in a porn shop that was kind of like one of the oldest ones that was operating in America up until the time that I had left. And, even in doing that, it was, it was more about trying to get people in touch with like, their humans, their humanity rather than just, like trying to like, profiteer off of like selling a whole bunch of whatever. Cause, and Ryan Roger Thay gives me shit about it all the time on Will of the Fans and even on Reality Based about like, it's like John used to test all the toys. And it's like, well, I had to make sure things worked by putting batteries in because all sales are final. But again, like, I was the guy who was there just kind of like doing a job. That doesn't mean that I'm like, absolved of anything, but I was not the person who was getting these things. But I try to be a little bit more kind of accepting and appreciative and understanding because of my own weird walk of faith, as I say. And, and even still, like every day is just kind of another day where I learn in my own light and, have time to actually kind of like appreciate the splendor that is the glory of God, which is the entire world around us. And far too many people are getting caught up in like, these manifestations of man, like all this technology and this and that. And it's like, if you're going to sit here and like chastise one aspect of, the game industry for being too sexy, then yet at the same time you're down for the violence, then it's kind of like, be consistent. If it's that much of an issue for you on this part, then it should be for everything. You just probably shouldn't even be involved in this if it's that much of a burr in your ass, and for people that can actually balance that out in accordance to their own faith, good. Have at it. Like I'm appreciative of people that can actually kind of like, separate, truth and reality from fiction and fantasy and just, Infinite Retro, I did a nearly 4-hour conversation with him earlier this week on matters of faith. And he plays a lot of Mortal Kombat and, he was very much, in the same accordance of, if you can't actually appreciate these things for just being, simple works, that aren't, maybe they're not the most, I guess reinforcing of what your quote unquote beliefs are. But, it's one of those things where if you're actually going to espouse this kind of, concept of what is lustful, then you probably need to actually have a better understanding what lust even is. And lust isn't necessarily about like, just seeing the feminine form, because, Melanie Mack herself has dressed up in bikinis and been, on camera, in various states of quote unquote undress herself. But that's like the lustful nature is about dehumanization and like, completely disregarding the individual that's attached to it and just kind of making it about like this thing. So, some girl in a video game that her attacks are music based and like, she does like little dances and this and that. That's just a reinforcement of the qualities of that particular character. And if that's something that's too much for you to bear, then by all means, you don't have to, number one, get the game. You don't have to then further buy into it by buying what is, DLC, paid for content. It's, like the steps to which it took for this, screenshot to exist is not something that was, forced upon anybody. This is levels of choice, and choices within choices. And so, you kind of have to give people a little bit of breathing room to, live to their own, accord, whether that's right or wrong. That's neither here for you or I to judge, lest we be judged more harshly. And so that's kind of the thing, is like, be forgiving so that you yourself can be forgiven.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I didn't know that he was in the FFS server. I would I would have him on and talk to him about.
Oh yeah, I'm hoping to reach out to him here in a couple of weeks when things are a little bit more, cooled down with this whole thing, hopefully, and hopefully he can understand that it's like whatever his quarrel is, it's not with me, like. No,
of course not. I mean, like I said before, and somebody made a comment that I think is a good point. Dean Domino in the chat said, "Here's the thing: we've had an unending tide of manjaw for years, and only now are we bucking the trend. Once we get enough, the mediocre fan service games will get way less attention." I agree with that. Somebody also asked me about playing Senran Kagura. Speaking of like ninja games that also feature waifus, and I do have it, and so I might stream that too. But I'm thinking about saving it for when I do the waifu month. Because I also have Gal Gun 2, which is pretty great, and I might find something else. I don't know. I probably have other stuff. Dragon's Crown is kind of like that too. But anyway, let's look at some good stuff. Here's the hype train. I'm gonna take us on the hype train.
Cool.
So these are some trailers that I didn't watch at the Game Awards because I didn't watch the Game Awards, but I saw them after, because obviously when they were announced, then they went on YouTube and the other parts of the internet. So I wanted to show you, first off, we're going to start with this Helldivers 2. This is not an expansion. It's not DLC. It is simply the latest update for the game. So if you own the game, you already have this. It's already there. And it's called Omens of Tyranny. And we're going to watch this.
They arrived without warning, laying waste to our peaceful colonies, crushing all resistance. They stole our citizens' homes.
Where do you think they got that from?
And their
I love how this stuff is obviously inspired by
something
80s movies.
much worse.
Right?
Their freedom. But when our citizens are attacked, our greatest heroes arrive to set them free. Together, we will save our people from this tortured existence.
Indeed.
For we are those who stand in the way of old tyranny, who will give our lives today for a freer tomorrow, who will take back control of freedom. And deliver peace to our homes. We are the Helldivers.
As you guys don't know, I think that's the Hives. Or
like
no, I think it's it's not the Hives. It's the ones who did that. They came out around the same time. It was the Hives and the other, licensed track. I know, totally gonna. The Vines. Yeah. I think it, or maybe I was right the first time. Anyway, they both came out at the same time, and they had a similar sounding name. I think it is the Hives. The Vines did the other song. But anyway, yeah, check it out. Sounds like air horns too. And then we got this one. This is the Elden Ring Night Rain. This looks like it's gonna be its own game, and it's gonna be like Monster Hunter. Sort of. So it's going to have it sounds very different, but very interesting to me. So 3-player co-op. It's its own game, so you don't have to own Elden Ring to play it. And it's very different from Software's usual fare.
Right.
It's faster paced. It doesn't have as much like, RPG elements in it. And it's yeah, it just sounds like it has a really interesting play loop, very different. If I can find people to play with.
Seekers of redemption, you were chosen, thrown together by forces beyond your control. Tragedy must be averted. And for that, I need your help. The life of the Night Lord.
Looks pretty good to me as a fan.
Right.
So okay, here's another one. This is like I did not expect this, but we got Onimusha coming back. Do you guys remember Onimusha?
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen this already, John?
Yeah, these were all on the award show.
Looks like it's very promising too.
Yeah. It's more Japanese side of the development.
Yeah. Attention. I used to love these games, the Onimusha ones. Now they just need to bring back Dino Crisis. God damn it. Speaking of ninjas,
you can get a version of Dino Crisis on the PS5 now. I can't remember if it's like a remastered version.
Oh, they
or if it's
remastered
just,
it?
I can't remember if it's a remaster that they did or if it's just the PS3 version that is now available again on PS5.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have a PS5, but
yeah, you're not missing out on anything.
I have the old ones. I have the old Dino Crisis.
Right.
My PS1 or PS2? I think. Maybe PS1. I don't know. But anyway, okay, this is Ninja Gaiden Ragebound. So this one's interests me because it's actually made by the same team that gave us the indie hit Blasphemous, which was this kind of like, you know about Blasphemous? It was like a side-scrolling game. Had a lot of like, has a lot of like dark fantasy, dark Catholic themes in it. Very cool. Well, this might not look like what you
Ninja Scrolls vibe. Yeah, you say. The cinematics kind of remind me of Ninja Scroll, and the play style reminds me of Ninja Gaiden.
So that's
that would be why.
Ninja Gaiden Ragebound looks very cool. And I got one more to show off. This one was recommended to me by someone yesterday that was their game of the year, actually. It's called, well, the full title is hold on. It's very funny. 420 Blaze It 2, Game of the Year, Dank Dreams, and Goated Memes. Hashtag wow/11, like and subscribe, Poggers Edition. So that's the full title. Okay. You can call it 420 Blaze It 2.
Right.
Rules of combat have changed. Illuminati. I gotta demo this one. It looks like fun. Oh shit. T-posing to the established dominance. Shoplift. Looks good. It does. Actual in-game footage. Memes. Get wrecked. MLG. This is just so weird, dude. It's an indie game. Your memes are weak, your fit is trash. Yeah, you could actually buy it now.
Nice.
So yeah, if you're interested in something irreverent, then yeah, check out 420 Blaze It 2, Game of Subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you guys think about what we talked about on the show today, and please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you, John. You're back.
Okay,
all right.
Good.
Yeah, I was just gonna wrap it up.
Yeah, no worries. It seems a good time. We're at the noon o'clock hour of my time.
We're at the clock, the time. So, what do you got coming up? Tell us really quick before I end the show.
Today I'm gonna go look at the internet for a second, and then I'm just gonna take a nap. And then tomorrow, WhoTF Live, bright and early, 9 a.m. Eastern time, and then we got Old White Road, and then I've got Monday off. So, and then just doing all the normal stuff. Other than that, I'm just trying to do production work to help Scooby Pup get her channel off the ground. She's got a stream that's going to be on December 28th, which, because you know me, I can't just do one thing on any day. So I figured I'd start doing production work for somebody on Saturdays. And so, yeah, I'm just keeping busy. And other than that, you know, I just say what I always do when I get to the end of these things. Safe travels ahead. Have a wonderful weekend going forward and be awesome as always.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining me on the show.
Yep.
And thank you guys for coming out and giving your thoughts and suggestions. Let me know what you guys think about what we talked about on any of the topics we covered today. And yeah, man, see you guys in the next one. Long live Vivian.
With the glass ceiling broken, all the oppressed groups shall prosper, especially the most oppressed group of all, gamers.
I want people in the industry to be a little bit louder about people being mean to other people, and maybe say it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Maybe say we don't want you around if you're going to be a cunt.
Yeah.
And hateful. And that the games industry is diverse naturally. Not because anyone's making them be diverse. Because the world is diverse, you stupid motherfucker. And if you have a problem with that, come fight me. Physically. Bitch.
Has anyone taken you up on that yet?
No, because they're all pussies.
Yep.
Down here, salt is a way of life.
Obviously, the environment down here is all salt. The ceiling's salt, the floor is salt, the walls are salt, and to an extent, the air is salt. And you breathe that in, and you can constantly taste the salt.